I had been living in my new suburban neighborhood for just a week. I thought it would be a fresh start after losing my job in the city. The houses are small and neat, and my place felt right, even if it was a bit run down. I just wanted quiet. I thought I would find it. On the third night, I was getting ready for bed when I heard it tapping coming from the wall next to my bedroom. At first, I thought my neighbor was working on something, maybe fixing a light or hanging pictures. It was none of my business, so I ignored it. But as the tapping continued, it creeped me out. Something felt off. The next night, the tapping changed. It turned into whispers. I couldn't understand the words, but the sound seeped into my dreams. It was like a distant conversation I couldn't quite reach. I started seeing my neighbor in his yard at strange hours, moving around awkwardly, almost like he didn't know the time. Sometimes, I thought I heard children laughing, but there were no kids in the neighborhood. It was just me and him. Every night, I lay awake, my mind racing. Was he just a reclusive guy? People liked their privacy, right? But the whispers made it hard to ignore. I leaned closer to the wall, hoping to catch a word. Just silence met me, like my neighbor's house was holding its breath. I knew I should talk to him, but I was scared. What if something truly dark was hiding behind that door? My heart raced at the thought. I didn't want to confront him. He seemed like a mystery I wasn't meant to solve. The more I thought about it, the more uneasy I felt. One night, I looked out the window, and he was there, in his yard, staring directly at my house. My skin crawled. I could feel the tension building in my chest. I could have sworn he knew I was watching him. Then it started again, the laughter. A child's laugh, perfectly clear. I nearly jumped out of my skin. I didn't know what to do. Should I confront him? Or just ignore it all and pretend I was fine? I was frozen, caught between fear and curiosity. Then, I heard a soft knock against the wall. Followed by that unmistakable sound of a child giggling. It was right on the other side. My breathing stopped. What was happening next door? Did I really want to find out? I felt that this couldn't keep going on. Every night, the sounds grew louder, more insistent. I wondered what it meant. What secrets lay hidden in the shadows of this quaint neighborhood? What if I finally chose to confront him? Would I find answers, or would I uncover something I was never meant to see? The following day, I decided I could no longer ignore what was happening next door. I walked down the driveway, my palms sweaty and my stomach tightening. Every step felt heavier as I approached that front door, half expecting something to leap out at me. But I was determined. I needed answers. I knocked lightly, barely making a sound. A moment later, the door opened just a crack. Out peered the neighbor, his face half hidden in shadow. He looked older up close, with deep lines etched into his forehead. "Can I help you?" His voice was low, almost cautious. I wanted to introduce myself. I hesitated, feeling the weight of the words as they sat in my throat. The new neighbor. He blinked, and for a second, I thought I caught a flash of something behind his eyes. Fear? Confusion? Right. "Nice to meet you," he muttered, glancing over his shoulder like he was waiting for something. Or someone. The door opened wider, and I caught sight of dim lights flickering in the background. Toys were scattered on the floor. I took a breath, trying not to let my nerves show. "I've been hearing some noises at night. Tapping and laughter." His gaze snapped back to me. "Laughter? There are no kids around here." He said it flatly, but I could sense an undercurrent of tension. Before I could question him further, I heard it again, a soft giggle, clear and mischievous, ringing out from inside the house. My heart raced. "What was that?" I asked, pointing toward the noise. He frowned, shaking his head like he didn't hear it. "Nothing. Just old pipes." Can't do much about it. But I could tell he was lying. The laughter came again, and with it, a faint scuttling sound, like tiny feet racing on the wooden floor. My instincts screamed at me to leave. I should go, I stammered, but I was already backing away. As I turned to leave, I caught sight of something moving quickly across the yard, a pale figure darting between the trees. I blinked, and it was gone. I wasn't sure if I had imagined it, but it sent chills down my spine. "I'll see you around," I said hastily, retreating to my house. Once inside, I locked the door and sank down against it, my heart pounding. I wasn't sure what I'd heard or seen, but I felt a heaviness in the air, like the weight of secrets pressing down on me. That night, I lay in bed, trying to shake off the feelings of dread. But when the tapping resumed, louder than ever, I felt trapped. The whispers floated back into my dreams, taunting me. I had tried to open the door to understanding, only to find it slamming shut in my face. Just as I thought I would find peace in sleep, the sound of scratching filled the stillness. It climbed up the wall, making its way toward my bedroom. I froze, uncertain of what was real anymore. Was it my neighbor? Or something far more sinister? Then everything went dark. The next morning, I woke up to a heavy silence. I blinked a few times, unsure of where I was. The shadows in my room felt thicker, the sunlight strained as it streamed through the curtains. My mind was still racing from last night's events. I got out of bed, my legs shaky. I needed to move, to shake off the remnants of fear. I brewed some coffee, clutching the warm mug as if it were a lifeline. The aroma filled the kitchen, but it did little to calm the unease that clung to me. I glanced out the window, hoping to see anything that would reassure me. But the neighbor's house stood still. No signs of life. It seemed to loom over our homes, a dark cloud in a perfectly clear sky. As I peered out, I remembered the figure I thought I saw the night before. My heart raced. Had my mind created it out of sheer anxiety? After a long moment of self-doubt, I decided I needed to gather more information about my neighbor. I placed my coffee down and grabbed my notepad. Maybe I could find some old news articles or records online. Anything to piece together the mystery. As I sat at my desk, typing away, I stumbled upon an old local forum. A few posts mentioned strange occurrences in the neighborhood years ago. Shadows moving, odd noises, whispers in the night. People seemed convinced it was just the wind until one woman posted about a child who went missing. My chest tightened at the thought. I scrolled more, heart thumping. The thread faded into complaints about the new development in town, but my gut churned. My mind was racing. Could all of this be connected to my neighbor? Just then, a sharp knock jolted me from my thoughts. I dropped my pen, rising to check the door. My heart raced again, but I forced myself to breathe. I opened it a crack, revealing an older woman I hadn't seen before. She looked concerned, her eyes flicking past me, searching. "I'm sorry to bother you," she said hastily, glancing over her shoulder. "I saw you talking to Mr. Ward next door. You should be careful." The urgency in her voice made my stomach drop. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She took a step closer, lowering her voice. "There are things in that house. Things best left alone. You don't want to get involved." Before I could ask more, she turned and walked away, disappearing as quickly as she'd come. I stood frozen, the air around me suddenly feeling thick and oppressive. What was happening? That's when I heard it again, a soft giggle, unmistakable, echoing in the stillness of the morning. It was coming from the direction of Mr. Ward's house. My heart dropped. I needed to know what was really going on. But the deeper I dug, the more I felt a pull back toward that unsettling door. I closed my eyes, bracing myself, knowing that I couldn't ignore it any longer. And with that, the realization hit me like a punch: I was already in too deep. I stood at the edge of my driveway, the air thick with tension. It took a moment for the giggle to fade, replaced by an uncomfortable silence. I had to make a choice. I couldn't just stand here. Curiosity pushed me forward, and I began walking toward Mr. Ward's house. With each step, I felt my stomach clench tighter. The grass beneath my feet was lush but so ordinary, contrasting sharply with the unsettling aura that surrounded the place next door. I glanced back, half expecting the old woman to reappear, to stop me. But there was no one in sight. I took a deep breath and made my way to the side of the house, where the shadows seemed to linger longer. The side gate was slightly ajar. My heart raced as I nudged it open, leading me into a narrow pathway flanked by overgrown bushes. Each rustle made me jump, and I felt as if invisible eyes were watching my every move. I reached the back of the house, where the shadows pooled beneath a large oak tree. The back porch creaked as I cautiously approached, and I could see inside through a dusty window. My pulse quickened when I spotted something on the floor, a collection of old toys scattered beneath a faded sunbeam. A doll with a cracked face stared straight at me, as though it knew secrets I didn't tell. Then, I heard it again, the giggle, louder this time. It came from inside. Fear coiled in my gut. Who was in there? Did Mr. Ward even know? With my heart in my throat, I tiptoed back to the door leading into the house. I paused, glancing back at the empty yard. No one was around to witness what I was about to do. Gathering my courage, I pressed my hand against the door, pushing it open slowly. The creaking hinges felt like a warning. The air inside was stale and heavy, and the gloom enveloped me like a cloak. I squinted, trying to see anything in the dim light. As I stepped further in, the floorboards groaned under my weight, and I held my breath. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaking. "Is anyone home?" Silence pressed back at me, thick and suffocating. But then, a whisper seemed to float through the air, rippling like a chilling breeze. It felt like a response, or maybe a plea. I edged into the living room, and that's when I saw it, a door slightly ajar, leading to the basement. The giggle came again, echoing from below. My gut churned as dread settled in my chest. Whoever had made that noise was down there, and I was getting pulled closer. But there was something else, too, a flicker of movement. I caught a glimpse of a shadow, darting across the wall. My heart pounded as the overwhelming urge to flee clawed at me, but the curiosity was stronger. I needed answers. It was now or never. I took a step toward the door. As my hand reached for the handle, it twisted on its own, and I felt a cold rush of air escape as the door swung wide open. Then, everything went dark. When the darkness closed around me, I took a step back, my pulse racing. I blinked, hoping my vision would adjust, but it remained pitch black. An unsettling chill crawled up my spine. The giggle echoed again, but this time it felt deeper, more mischievous. I felt around for some solid footing, anything to ground me. My fingers grazed the damp, cold wall. It was rough and jagged, and I shivered at the thought of what could be lurking just beyond my vision. I needed to see, but fear clenched tight in my chest like a vice. "Hello?" I said again, my voice quieter, almost a whisper. There was no answer, just the faint sound of something dragging along the floor. It sent a jolt of panic through me. I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to confront whatever was causing that noise. Just then, a flicker of light caught my attention. I squinted into the abyss, and for a moment, I thought I could make out a figure standing just beyond the threshold of the basement room. My breath caught as I waited for it to move, my heart pounding louder than the creaking house. Then I remembered the toys I had seen earlier. They were scattered throughout the living room. What if the figure belonged to a child? I didn't recognize the sound of a child laughing here, but I couldn't shake the feeling. "Are you okay?" I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. As if in response, the light flickered again, revealing more of the shadow. It was small and childlike, swaying gently, almost playfully. My heart sank, it felt like a cruel trick. I hesitated, glancing back toward the door. The urge to run screamed at me. Yet a part of me still believed I could help whoever was down here. I took a breath, steeling myself, and stepped into the darkness. The floor creaked beneath me, warning me with every step. I walked toward the light, which now pulsed faintly, casting eerie shapes on the walls. The giggle broke through the quiet again, playful yet haunting, and I felt a shiver race down my spine. Then I heard it, the unmistakable sound of footsteps behind me. Panic gripped me. I whirled around, my heart threatening to leap out of my chest. "Who's there?" I shouted, but the shadows only whispered back. "Just playing," came a voice, soft and sweet, rising from the darkness. My stomach clenched. I couldn't see who or what was speaking. "Where are you?" My voice cracked, betraying my fear. "Are you trapped?" The footsteps continued, echoing in the confined space. I felt the cold brush of air against my cheek, not just a draft, but the breath of something close. I had to escape, but my feet felt glued to the floor. Suddenly, the light brightened, bathing the corner of the room in a ghostly glow. That's when I saw it, an old toy chest, partially hidden beneath a sagging blanket. It had been pulled open, revealing a jumble of dolls and cracked toys, all staring back at me. But there was something larger, something lurking just behind it. My instincts screamed for me to turn and run, to get out before whatever it was could reach me. But my feet refused to move. A tiny hand emerged from the shadows, followed by a face that looked far too young to be in a place like this. I froze. Someone was in the basement after all, but that only raised more questions. My heart raced as I realized I had to confront whatever was happening here, before it was too late. My mind fumbled for answers, but before I could process anything further, the childish laughter erupted again, now sharp and echoing through the dark. It sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. I wasn't just in the wrong place, I was in grave danger. Then, the shadows shifted. The shadows twisted, revealing more of the childlike figure. A girl stood there, hair disheveled and eyes wide, but there was something off about her smile. It was bright, too bright, and didn't reach her eyes. "Come play." She beckoned, her voice too sweet yet tinged with an unsettling edge. No, I can't," I stammered, taking a cautious step back. The giggling bubbled up again, but now it felt jagged, as if it was slicing through the air. The child stepped forward, the gleam of the light catching her face. Her cheeks were pale, almost translucent, and I felt an odd chill seep through my clothes. She pointed toward the toy chest. "They want to play too." I shifted my gaze, heart hammering. The toys seemed to shift closer, as if they were alive. Their painted eyes followed me, swallowing me in a sea of expectation. I could barely breathe. "Who?" I finally managed, my throat dry. "Who wants to play?" "Everyone." The girl's laughter echoed with an eerie vibrato, causing something deep inside me to twist in fear. The shadows danced around us, contorting into strange shapes. I felt the hair on my arms stand at attention. Just then, the dragging noise returned, louder this time. It came from behind me, just at the threshold of where the light met the dark. I turned fast, ready to see what lurked in the shadows. But nothing moved, nothing emerged. "No peeking!" she exclaimed, her voice sharp. The fun in her tone had vanished, replaced by a sudden hostility. My instincts kicked in. "Look, I really need to go now." I turned my back on her and found the stairs, but each step felt like a weight pulling me back. The shadows stretched, nearly wrapping around my ankles. "Please don't," she cried, her voice now urgent. "You have to stay. We have so many games." "Games?" I echoed, close to a whisper. "Is that what this is?" My heart raced. The toys, the shadows, the girl. None of it made sense, and the urge to escape swelled inside me. Then I felt it, a small, cold hand clutching my wrist. I spun around, expecting to confront the girl, but her expression had changed. Fear had replaced her earlier cheerfulness. "You can't leave." I yanked my hand away and dashed toward the stairs. I heard her footsteps pounding behind me, closing the distance, her giggles turning to frantic cries. "Wait! You're not supposed to go." I reached the stairs, my legs pounding against the wood. I could hear her breath quickening behind me. As I grasped the doorknob, the echoes of her laughter morphed into a wail, shrill and piercing. In a final burst of adrenaline, I yanked the door open, tumbling out into the dim hallway. I slammed the door shut behind me, leaning against it, panting. The laughter faded, but the unease twisted in my gut. I glanced back at the door, my heart still racing. I was safe for now, but something was wrong. The girl, the toys, none of it felt right. I turned to face the hallway, determination settling in as I prepared to face whatever secrets this house held. As I took a step forward, I noticed something shimmering on the floor in the hallway. Bending down, I picked it up, a small round mirror, cracked but reflecting enough light to see. Just as I examined it, my own reflection smiled back at me, and I realized it wasn't my own expression at all. That smile wasn't mine. I dropped the mirror, heart racing. The clatter echoed down the hall, and I stepped back, suddenly scared of the object that had just betrayed me. I forced myself to breathe, focusing on simple things: the cold floor beneath my feet, the stale scent of dust in the air, the dim light flickering from a nearby bulb. "Get a grip," I muttered under my breath. I needed to find a way out, a clear exit from this maze of shadows and childlike glee that had quickly turned sinister. The girl's laughter still echoed, but now it felt distant. Maybe I had a moment of reprieve. I turned on my heel, looking for another way down, when I heard a soft creaking noise coming from a door at the end of the hall. I squinted through the gloom. It was slightly ajar, a hint of dark wood and even darker shadows spilling out into the light. Cautiously, I approached the door, my pulse quickening again. What if it was another trap? What if she was waiting just inside, toys lining the room, all of them ready to play? I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the moment. The creaking repeated, louder this time, as if beckoning me closer. I pushed the door open just a crack. The hinges groaned in protest. I peered inside, my breath catching. The room looked like a child's bedroom, but not any bedroom I'd ever seen. The walls were painted in swirling colors, bright but smeared together like an unsettling painting. In one corner stood a tall, old wardrobe, its doors slightly ajar, while a few scattered dolls blankly stared back at me. Then I noticed something moving within the wardrobe. A flicker, just inside the darkness. I took a tentative step in, then froze as I heard a soft whisper coming from the direction of the wardrobe. "Help me!" My stomach dropped. "Who's there?" I called, trying to sound brave but failing miserably. A small figure emerged, almost as pale as the girl from before. A boy, perhaps his hair tousled, eyes wide with fear, mirroring the expression I had seen earlier. You have to get me out of here." "She won't stop playing with me." His voice was trembling, and I felt the panic rising again. "Who?" I asked, hoping he could explain what was happening. "Is it the girl? What does she want?" "The toys," he whispered, glancing over his shoulder as if afraid they could hear. "They don't want to play. They want..." Before he could finish, a loud bang shattered the stillness behind me, and I whirled around. The door to the hallway slammed shut with a force that rattled the walls. The boy gasped, and I noticed fear etched deeper into his features. "What was that?" I asked, backing away instinctively, my back hitting the wardrobe. "I told you," he said softly, almost lost. "She won't let you leave. No one ever leaves." Panic surged through me. I clenched my fists, glancing toward the door. My mind screamed for a way out, but all my instincts told me to run and hide. The atmosphere thickened with pressure, and I felt trapped, cornered. I turned back to the boy, suddenly desperate again. "Get away from there." The voice boomed from the other side of the door. My heart raced as I realized the girl was back, and she wasn't alone. The shadows around me shifted, ready to snatch me up. The boy shivered, his gaze flicking nervously toward the wardrobe. And that's when I saw it, a shadow slipping under the crack of the door, moving ominously toward us. I knew I had to act fast. The air thickened, and I felt the weight of all those eyes watching, waiting for me to make the wrong move. The shadow crept closer, curling beneath the door like smoke. I felt a surge of panic. "What do we do?" I shouted at the boy, searching his expression for answers. He stared at the floor, his face pale as a ghost. "Hide!" he hissed, urgency seeping into his voice. I didn't need a second invitation. With a glance back at the boy, I scrambled around him, diving behind the wardrobe just as the door rattled. My heart thumped louder than ever, drowning out the sound behind me. The boy squeezed in beside me. "We'll be safe here," he whispered. I wasn't sure about anything anymore. The door creaked open, and the girl stepped into the room. She was a tangle of shadows and mischief, a twisted smile playing across her lips. "I know you're in here," she called, her voice echoing with playful malice. "Time to play." I held my breath, praying she wouldn't notice us. The girl's gaze swept over the room, pausing on the dolls. They seemed to shudder as her eyes passed over them, but she continued. "Where's the fun if you're hiding?" she taunted, walking further into the room. I could feel her presence growing closer, the air growing heavier with each step. "What does she mean by fun?" I whispered to the boy. He trembled, shaking his head. "I don't know," he replied, his voice barely a murmur. "But I don't want to find out." I stole a glance through the narrow gap between the wardrobe doors. The girl was standing by the bed now, inspecting a pile of stuffed animals. Her fingers grazed their fur, and I could see her eyes sparkle with something dark. Then she turned suddenly, her attention snapping back toward us. "I can hear you," she said cheerfully. "Come out and play. I promise it will be fun." My stomach twisted. I squeezed the boy's arm tightly, wishing we could just vanish. The scent of dust and fear mingled in the air, suffocating. I can't," I stammered, trying to remain hidden. "We don't want to play." The girl bent down and peered behind the bed. I could see the shadows shifting around her, thickening. "Oh, but you will." Then she straightened, and I felt a chill wash over me. Her smile widened until it became unnatural, stretching across her face. "You're not the first to hide. But I always find everyone." The boy next to me whimpered. I was frozen, terrified. "Would you like to meet my toys?" she asked, voice dripping with excitement. A noise behind her made me flinch. I glanced at the boy. Fear shone in his eyes. "Please," he begged, desperate. "We need to get out before she finds us." That's when I heard it, a soft rustling from the wardrobe itself. My heart sank as I realized the shadow I thought I'd seen slinking away was shifting at the back of the wardrobe. An object moved, something old and worn, its outline barely visible. "Her toys are coming to life," I whispered, the dread settling deeper. The girl tilted her head, eyes narrowing as she sensed the movement. "Are you trying to take my friends?" she asked, her voice deceptively sweet. I knew we had to act, and fast, or we'd be trapped in this twisted game forever. The boy's hand trembled in mine, and I could feel the heat of his panic radiate through the air. I had to do something. The girl's smile grew wider, as if she could sense our fear. It felt like we were toys in her game, and the rules were not in our favor. Without thinking, I pushed the wardrobe doors just a little farther open. I needed to understand what was happening. My breath caught as I focused on the back of the wardrobe. The rustling had stopped, and in the darkness, something glimmered faintly. "Look," I whispered, pointing. "What is that?" The boy squinted into the dimness. "I don't know," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "Whatever it is, it can't be good." The girl stepped closer to the wardrobe, curiosity flickering in her eyes. "Are you talking about my toys?" she asked sing-song, swaying slightly as if she were dancing with shadows. In that moment, the shadows around her seemed to pulse, and I felt a thick pressure in the room. The air felt alive, crackling like static before a storm. I pressed back against the wardrobe, my heart racing. "We need to make a distraction," I whispered urgently to the boy. "Are you with me?" He hesitated, but nodded. "Okay. On 3, we make a noise over there." I pointed to the bed, where a stuffed animal lay carelessly tossed aside. "Then we run for the door." He swallowed hard, and his eyes went wide. "What if she catches us?" "We'll take that chance." With a surge of adrenaline, I counted softly. 1, 2, 3. We both let out a loud thump against the wardrobe as I tossed a few clothes. It was enough. The girl turned sharply, narrowing her eyes at the bed. "Who's playing tricks?" she growled. Without waiting for her to react, I pushed the wardrobe open wider and pulled the boy out. "Run!" We darted toward the door, and the girl's scream of frustration followed behind us like a haunting echo. My heart hammered in my chest as we burst into the hallway. I glanced back, half expecting to see her looming behind us. "Where do we go?" the boy gasped, fear gripping his expression. The hallway stretched in both directions, filled with dimly lit doors. "Just keep moving," I said, grabbing his arm. We chose the left path, running as fast as we could. I had no idea where we were headed, but staying away from her was all that mattered. As we sprinted down the hallway, I caught glimpses of odd pictures on the walls. They were all of the girl, but the smiles were twisted and unnatural. Something felt deeply wrong with each portrait. "What is this place?" I breathed, confusion mixing with fear. I felt a shift in the air behind us, making my skin crawl. The shadows pulsated like they were alive. I turned to see the girl gliding down the hallway, her eyes fixed on us with a predatory gleam. "We can't let her catch us," I shouted, picking up speed. Then I saw something at the end of the hallway, a door, slightly ajar. It promised escape, but as we approached, I realized the shadows seemed thicker there, twisting like snakes against the frame. "Is it safe?" the boy asked, voice shaking. Before I could answer, the girl shrieked, "You can't leave. This is my house." We reached the door just as a horrible laugh echoed behind us. I pushed the door wide open, and a wave of cold air enveloped us, revealing darkness beyond. "Go!" I yelled, urging the boy forward. But as we stepped inside, everything went dark. I felt a sudden rush of cold air sweep past me as the door slammed shut behind us. It made no sense. One moment I was standing on the precipice of freedom, and the next, I was swallowed by an engulfing void. I strained my eyes, trying to discern any details in the darkness, but it was hopeless. All I could hear was the pounding of my heart and the hushed breaths of the boy beside me. "Where are we?" he whispered, panic lacing his tone. I don't know," I replied, my voice trembling. Fear and confusion coursed through me. The terror from the girl lingered like a sour taste in my mouth, and I couldn't shake the memory of her wicked smile. Then, a soft sound emerged from the darkness, a whisper, coaxing, almost musical. "Come and play." The voice was familiar, yet haunting. Shadows flitted at the edges of my vision, tightening and swirling like tendrils of smoke. "Stay close," I murmured, instinctively inching towards the sound, hoping it might lead us to safety. I grasped the boy's arm tightly, pulling him along with me. We need to find a way out. The whispers teased our ears as we crept deeper into the dark, the path ahead uncertain. Every step felt heavy with foreboding, the atmosphere thickening around us. But sunlight did pierce through, a distant glow beckoning from afar. Direction ignited a flicker of hope within me, and I propelled us toward it. After what felt like an eternity, we emerged into another dimly lit room. In the center stood a large window, its glass dusty and cracked, but it allowed soft beams of light to filter through. Sunlight danced on the floor, and I felt its warmth seep into my bones. I rushed towards it, heart racing, barely resisting the urge to call out with glee. But as I neared the window, I froze. A shadow loomed beyond the glass, pulse quickening. There she was, the girl, her eyes locked onto mine, lips curling into a smile that made my skin crawl. She waved playfully, and behind her, I saw flickers of movement. Tiny figures darted around her legs, almost invisible in their frenzied excitement. "Let us go!" I shouted, slamming my palms against the window with desperation. This isn't a game. The light churned with an intensity one hadn't felt before, causing me to squint against the brightness. But the girl only giggled, the sound ricocheted off the walls, taunting us. "There's no escape, you're mine now. You can play forever." I turned to the boy, his eyes filled with dread. "What do we do?" He whimpered, looking as if he might crumble under the weight of his fear. Despite the shadows swirling around me, I felt an unexpected resolve. "We need to find something to break the connection," I said, scanning the room. "If we can just distract her long enough." Maybe just then, I noticed a glimmering object lying on the floor near the wall, a small, bent piece of metal. I hesitated, remembering the stories about old toys. "Can you grab that?" I asked the boy, urgency in my tone. "Maybe it can help us." He nodded, eyes wide. While he moved toward it, my gaze snapped back to the girl outside. Her excitement was palpable as she advanced toward the window, the tiny figures from earlier swirling around her. A chant of laughter filled the air, sharper now. I turned and grabbed hold of a nearby chair, instinctively turning back toward the girl as the weight of anxiety settled deeper in my chest. "Hurry!" I urged as I lifted the chair, bracing myself for whatever was to come. From the corner of my eye, I saw the boy grasping the metal piece. It gleamed in the light, a curious reflection captivating both of us. "I got it," he managed, panting slightly. But as he stood beside me, we both felt the shift. The girl was closing in, laughter echoing like thunder. I hurled the chair against the window with all my might. It shattered violently, scattering shards of glass everywhere. The girl halted, her grin faltering as the sunlight flooded the room, momentarily blinding her. In that split second, the boy and I dashed toward the opening where the glass had been. Light poured in like a lifeline. We leaped through the opening, colliding into daylight. Soft grass met my feet as we landed, and I couldn't help but gasp in relief as I realized we were outside the oppressive darkness driven back behind us. As I turned around, my heart sank. The girl stood in the fractured shadows of the house, her smile twisted and eyes glinting with malice, but she was powerless to pursue us across the threshold. "You can't escape me," she cried, the shadows writhing around her like snakes. I grabbed the boy's hand, keeping my eyes locked on her as we sprinted away from that cursed place. We ran and ran until it felt like we had crossed the entire neighborhood. Finally, we collapsed onto a grassy patch not far from my house, panting heavily. The distant laughter still echoed faintly in my ears, but for now, the threat was behind us. As reality set in, I dared to glance back. The house looked normal from this distance, a quaint, unassuming structure basking in sunshine. I shuddered with the weight of everything that had happened. What was true? What had I really encountered? But as I turned back toward the boy, who was staring at the ground, I couldn't shake off the nagging questions. What if she is still there? I whispered, fear nipping at my heels. I don't know, he said, his voice trembling. But I don't want to find out. And though we had escaped, I realized the shadows would always linger at the edges of our lives, watching, waiting, an ever-present reminder that the unknown could emerge once more, dark and insidious, at any moment. I had freed us in body but couldn't shake the feeling of being tethered to that house. Perhaps some mysteries were never meant to be solved, nor threats fully extinguished. As I pressed my hand to my heart, the unease settled inside, a companion in shadows, just out of reach, always waiting.